Hi guys, it's Blackie Shaman's Forge Bushcraft. Okay, a couple of months ago I did a thing about we're going to do a nightmare scenario, I called it. And in it, everybody that asked the question of what can you do with a knife, you know, the if you only had a knife, that was all you had. Well, I call it the nightmare scenario. All I've got is a knife type deal. Now, let me say up front, I do not believe in such a thing. I have on my body a ferro rod that's part of my daily key ring. I have a Swiss Army knife that I'm extremely confident with on me at any time. If I'm in the field, I've got a knife strapped to my body, probably a couple other edge weapons. The scenario of me just being left with only a knife is kind of, oh, you took a tumble down, or okay. But what I think you're really asking me is, what can I do with just a knife? And that's more like the practical field guide to a knife. So that's really where we're going to go with this. I'm going to show you a bunch of skills and things that use a knife. Not necessarily where the knife is the star of the show, but it's a supporting actor, so to speak. And a lot of this stuff is things you already know. You already know it'll cut. And we'll get to that. But it's the things where having a knife makes life so much better. Now in this nightmare scenario, when you've got into the situation where this is the only tool you've got, your knife. What is the perfect knife? There is no such thing. There's the knife you have right now, and it's the knife that you're confident with, feels good in the hand, and you have the skill set to utilize. That's the perfect survival knife. Now I'm not trying to meander out or whatever. I'm trying to point out that with the proper skill set, a dime store kitchen knife can be a survival knife. And on the other end of that spectrum, a $1,000 custom knife is no better to someone who does not have the skills. So, having said that, let me show you a skill you already have. You just don't realize it. And the knife is going to play a part in this. Okay? Now, you already have this skill set, but you haven't put it together. Now let me show you how we're going to put it together. And you've trained for it since you was a small child. See that? That's clock face. You know what that is. Since you were a small child, you've been taught how to read a clock. That is the up, that is the hour, that is 3 o'clock. You can tell that. But what if I change it just a little bit and I take the numbers off? And I tell you, that's a clock. And I hold it up. You've seen these. You have no problem reading that clock. Even though there's no numbers indicated, your mind is so trained to this, it just fills it in. What if I go one step further? And I give you a clock that does not have any numbers on it, it's just hands. Well, in looking at that, it depends on which way is the top of the clock. Because this way, it's 7:30. That way, it's 2 o'clock. So now you need to know where the top of the clock is. But it's assumed that when I look at it, the top's at 12, the 6 is at the bottom. Okay? Now, what if I took away the hour hand? And I just gave, took away the minute hand. And all I gave you was the hour hand. You could tell it was about to be 5 o'clock, give or take. What does this have to do with knife skills? It's because with the mental mindset of that's a clock, I can pick up whatever piece of junk laying on the ground. I can take my knife and I can cut off the end of a limb and make a piece, and I can mentally say that's a clock. Now I can lay it down and use it. I can take a piece of bark, I can take a leaf, I can take a piece of trash I picked up. As long as whatever it is I pick up, I'm going to utilize, and I tell myself mentally, that's a clock. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you how we're going to apply this. Here is my clock face, and this could be a leaf, this could be a piece of bark, this could be a cross section of a limb that I whittled off, anything, as long as I mentally say that is a compass and it's relatively, that is a clock and it's relatively round. Okay, now I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to set the knife. And you see how broad that shadow is going across that face? I'm trying to see this, yes. I'm going to turn my knife until it is as narrow and fine as possible. That means it is dead on the sun, right there. I'm going to stick it in the ground. Now, I'm going to move it till it crosses the center line, just like that. Piece of grass holding it. There we go. That is 10 o'clock. That is 10 o'clock. Where is 12 o'clock to 10 o'clock? Well, orientating myself to where that's in the 10 o'clock position, that right there is 12 o'clock. Now since, remember I said it's daylight savings time, I want to know not 12 o'clock, but 1 o'clock. Remember that. During daylight savings time in the fall, you want 1 o'clock because of the hour shift, not 12. So 1 o'clock would be right here. Okay? I don't have to mark it, I just have to mentally sit here, line myself up and say that's 10 o'clock, that's 1 o'clock. Now I take an indicator and I split the difference between them. I sit it down and I move my knife out of the way. Now this is not a clock, this is now a compass. That's south, that's north. Because half the distance between the hour and during daylight savings time 1 o'clock, during regular time 12 o'clock, is south. So that is now a compass, and this end of the stick right here is pointing north relative to my position. So I now have a compass sitting on the ground. I created my compass on the ground. Picking up my knife, I'm going to stand where my marker is pointing straight ahead of me, right off my nose, that way. That way right there is north, straight ahead of me. What is the heading I want to be moving? I want to be going, in this case, northwest. So that's a compass face, just like a clock. I know where northwest is. Northwest is here. I am now centered. Dead that way is northwest. Now, remember on a lensatic compass, you're sighting a target in open country. I need to be able to pick a target over there. Pick a target, over there. So I'm going to use my knife. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put it up here to my face. And I'm going to look dead in that direction, far as I can see over yonder. I'm going to bring my knife up and making sure it's just like that, so I'm not pointing off. Right there. I'm now going to let the edge of the knife act like a pointer on a lensatic compass. In the distance, I see a tree way over yonder with a broken branch. That's my new target. That's my dead reckoning heading. But before I shove off, one more thing. What if I'm going down in the bottom and coming up? I may lose sight. Standing here right now, facing the correct direction, where's my shadow? My shadow right now, to my line of travel, is facing at about 11 o'clock. If I'm the clock and that's 12 o'clock, it's facing right now at 11 o'clock. So therefore, as I walk to that target, keep my shadow at the 11 o'clock position. And I'll be hitting in the same direction. Should I change direction, my shadow will shift relative to a clock and indicate a different time. If I'm standing straight and straight off my nose is 12 o'clock, and I need my shadow at 11 o'clock, and I look down and my shadow's over here at 1 o'clock, I've got turned, haven't I? So, to recap, taking any object that I pick up, trash, whatever, anything that I can say in my mind that that is a compass. Taking it, putting it on the ground, taking my knife and fine-tuning to the finest shadow I can get, putting that compass on there so that the line goes all the way across the center of the clock, finding out what the time is, taking that time and transferring it to that clock I just created. Okay, so that's 10 o'clock. Knowing that it's daylight savings time and saying I gotta use 1 o'clock, not 12 o'clock. Okay, that's 1 o'clock, and I split the difference. I put my indicator down. I have now created a ground compass. I then stand up, orientate myself, my feet on either side of it, naturally squared up, so straight off my nose, straight ahead, is now noon, is now 12, is now north. And I know that I need to be going, in this scenario, northwest. So I turn my body till I'm facing northwest on my compass. I then use my knife as a sighting tool, and I spot my target over yonder, my walk-to point. I then see where my shadow falls on the clock that is me, pick it up and head out. Do you have to have a knife for it? No, but it makes life a whole lot easier because a round stick casts a wider shadow. I need a shadow that's thin, very thin and precise. And having my knife there is just quick and easy to do it because that broad blade makes a broad shadow, but when you dial it in straight, it's thin. My narrow shadow going across my clock face produces a more accurate compass face. Using the edge of the knife as a pointer makes me a lensatic type to pick my target over yonder where I'm walking to. Seeing where my shadow falls helps me for lateral drift in that walk. As you see, it's not as much the knife as what's up here. The knife is the tool. This is the applicator. This is the drill bit. This is the drill. I hope this helps, guys. Please leave any questions or comments in the below. There will be a lot more of these as I go along with the Practical Field Guide of the Knife, or as you like to call it, the Nightmare Scenario. What can I do with just a knife? There's going to be a lot more of these. Stay with us, guys. I'm Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.